This podcast is powered by the pros at Paschal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPaschal.com.
And we have Matt Jones with us. He, of course, is in studio. And then Matt Jones from the Democrat Gazette with us on the McLarty Daniel hotline right now. The day after Arkansas, I was going to say the baseball season ends, Matt, but no, we still have some regionals to finish today. We've got super regionals, got the College World Series. Got like a month left, but it's not involving Arkansas. How you doing today?
I'm good. Hey, were you playing double vision because you had two Matt Joneses on the show?
Was that why you chose that song, Matt?
Double vision.
Yes, that must have been the exact reason why. That's actually that's a perfect choice for this moment. Yes, that's why it happened. Yes,
I've had a few times where I've gone on different shows, Phil, and I can tell that the song has been picked because of the name. You know, it might be Mr. Jones by Counting Crows, or yeah, it's just kind of funny.
Me and Mr. Jones by Amy Winehouse. Is that what you were going to go with?
No,
okay.
Actually, I'll tell you, I had in mind. There was an old song, Me and Mrs. Jones. It sure was not that one, but they picked it for me.
All we need is for me to be doing the show at the KSR Studios in Lexington, owned by Matt Jones, the radio guy there. Then we would really have realities colliding into each other.
I can tell you a great story about him and me and radio, but we'll save that one for another day.
Oh, I heard about that one too. Yeah, so some people don't realize there are a lot of Matt Joneses out there. All right, Matt. The day after Arkansas season comes to an end, it's a step back from the year before. So I look at last year, and I think of a team that was injury riddled, kind of beaten up, and didn't really have a lot of depth of pitching because of injuries, and ran into a buzzsaw in TCU. Now, there might have been a couple pitching injuries that left them, I'm not going to say thin, because they weren't thin as far as pitching was concerned. They were healthy when it came to the hitters and position players. I don't view Kansas State the same way that I do TCU, nor do I view SEMO. So that's what makes these last two games really tough.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I don't think they finished the regular season this year maybe as strong as they did last year. I know it was kind of similar in how the last 2 weeks played out. You know, last year was South Carolina and Vanderbilt, and this year is Mississippi State and Texas A&M. But they won the SEC last year. They only won the West this year. I think it was a good year with a bad finish. I do wonder how much the totality of everything that's happened with pitching kind of caught up with them at the end of the year. You know, I thought what made this team so good early in the season was that nobody was having to go the schedule, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that, they were getting quality starts out of, 3 starters for the most part every weekend. They weren't playing 5 games in a week until into April. And then about that time is when Colin Fisher goes down and Hunter Dietz can't pitch anymore. And then your top 2 starters, they're not going as deep into games. And any time that something like that happens, there's a trickle-down effect. And, arms are going to get tired at the end of the year. And, I just kind of think maybe the innings and everything kind of caught up to this team. But, it really comes down, though, to Hagen Smith just wasn't Hagen Smith, at the end of the Kansas State game. They had that regional set up perfectly for them. Up on Kansas State, mid-innings, you got Hagen Smith on the mound and, plenty of your better arms to go in the bullpen. And, it's unfortunate that this is 2 years in a row now where he's given up a big inning in his regional start. And, as great of a pitcher as he's been, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to remember that about him.
So when it happened last year, there was something in the back of my head that said, it's not that I expected him to struggle as badly as he did against TCU. It's just there was a level of inconsistency that Hagen had shown as a sophomore. That's why they took him out of the rotation, put him in the bullpen, and then put him back in the rotation again once he had kind of, gotten through things a little bit more. This year, it was a consistent Hagen Smith every single weekend, every single Thursday or Friday, 6 innings, more than 10 strikeouts, 2 or less runs, usually 1 run or no runs, and utter dominance. And I thought they were being brilliant with the way that they were handling it, meaning the coaches, and saying, look, you could go 7 innings, we're going to hold you to 6 because we're going to keep that inning and save your bullet, so to speak, for June, and they did it all season long. There were probably 5 or 6 starts where, even in the postgame, David said Hagen could have gone another inning. He didn't look like he lost anything in the 6th in those games. I thought it was a brilliant strategy, and you're right. They had it perfectly set up. That's where it doesn't make any sense. And if I look back on anything from this last season, it really is the clutch hitting and all of that. I get that was an issue, but they still were set up the way they wanted to be in the winner's bracket game on the Saturday in the regional. And that's what I'll take from this season right now. I hate it too, because what I want to take, Matt, is I want to remember everything about Hagen Smith before Hoover, which was amazing to watch. But we'll remember the 5th inning against K-State.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's so weird how that works out because, if they do get vintage Hagen Smith on Saturday night, for one more inning, and he's pretty good for 4 innings. Yeah, but if he can get him through the 5th, 6th inning, Bite pitched really well. Probably the best I've seen him pitch this year. And we're probably having a much different conversation today. Arkansas maybe in a super regional at home. I think they're built for a super regional a little bit better than maybe they're built for a regional. But that's baseball for you. There's a real fine line between winning and losing, and they teetered it the other night, and unfortunately it didn't perform the way it did.
Are you in a mode right now of looking back, or are you in a mode of looking ahead? Because you are replacing a lot, and maybe that's just the case every year now. I know David mentioned that post game they've replaced almost the entire team a couple years in a row. Got to do it again. But are you still in post-mortem mode, or are you in looking ahead mode?
Well, I think I don't know that I'm in either, but I think if you're coaches, you're probably somewhere right between. I think that there's any good coach is going to analyze what went wrong and, try to make sure that doesn't happen again. Or you heard Dave even asking a question in the post game yesterday. It was like, maybe they were tired. Maybe in the future we get a 1:00 game in this situation and you just show up at noon and go play like summer league baseball. You kind of see the wheels turn in his head as he was analyzing, what he had just seen less than an hour beforehand on the field. So I think there's some of that, but you can't dwell on it for too long because, I don't know if you paid attention today, but the transfer portal was hopping this morning.
Oh yeah.
And you got to get in there and you're going to have your team built, over the next 6 weeks or so. I would think that we're going to know most of the players who are going to be on next year's team. Of course, you got to get through the draft, and that can change things. But with as many roster spots as they have open, I don't think you can dwell on this for too long.
It's like, so people would be like, so, what do they need? What do they need going into this next season? I think the answer is yes. They kind of need a little of everything, too. I don't think they're going to – I think they'll go out and look for starting pitching. I think they'll go out and look for relievers, even though you've got a lot of good young talent that's coming back on the mound. As far as position players are concerned, you're replacing, like, everybody. Outside of Vahiva Aloy, you're replacing everybody.
Yeah, probably so. And Ryder Helfrich, he may be their catcher. We've heard a lot of that talk this year, that he's going to be the catcher of the future at Arkansas. I think they really like his upside. Nolan Souza, I think he's going to fit in somewhere. And we talked about all this, assuming that these players are coming back, and I don't have any reason to believe that they're not going to be back, but it's a different time. You can't just assume that players are going to be back because they were on the roster this year. But those are players who I think kind of fit into their long-term plans. But past that, they've got to have an entirely new outfield. They've got to have a new first baseman. They've got to have a new third baseman. Maybe Souza fits in at third. I don't know if he's a third baseman or a second baseman. I don't know where he fits in the field. But yeah, it's like kind of a blank canvas. I think they do have a lot of pitching parts for next year. I thought Gage Wood was looking really good toward the end of the season, and that probably bodes well for him to have a prominent spot pitching next year, whether that's start or whatever it is with him. Gabe Gack will be back. Hunter Dietz, we didn't get to see a whole lot of him this year, but there's a lot of excitement about him. You got Fouts. We mentioned Bybee. If all of those pieces are back, I think you like the pieces that are there in your bullpen. Potential with some pieces that you can get out of this high school recruiting class or out of the transfer portal. But yeah, position player wise, I just think that's how it's going to be for a while because it seems to me, Phil, like it's as weird as it sounds, it has been harder in the last few years to get the big position players through the draft than it has been for the pitchers. I mean, think about the pitchers who have shown up. You've had Hagen Smith. You've had Gabe Gankel, Hunter Dietz. Those were all big-time draft prospects. To a lesser extent, Brady Tygart. Adam Hatzman was a big draft prospect before he got hurt, and he didn't pitch this year. What position player could you put in that same class? Peyton Stovall? Maybe Jason Jones to a little bit lesser extent. So, I think that we're going to see this quite a bit in the future of, you're recycling, or maybe not recycling, but, you're rebuilding your position roster quite a bit every offseason, probably through transfer portal and players who are older in those positions than they were 5 or 6 years ago.
So to wrap up here, one of the things that just is crazy about these last 2 years of a lack of success in the postseason is they've been not undefeated, but they've won every single series played at home 2 years in a row at Ball and Walker, and then lost in the regional. It's like you try to jibe these things together, and it just doesn't jibe. They've lost the last 3 postseason tournaments or series at home, and I wonder if there's something to that. Do you?
Well, I mean, it's certainly something that I think you've got to think about. The feeling I got from people around the program was that they were almost relieved when they didn't have to play at Baum in 22. They'd played Vanderbilt there, lost to them at the regular season. I think that there was kind of a feeling of, I don't know what the word would be, but it was like when they got on the road and they went to Hoover. I guess that road trip actually started, the end of the regular season. Then they go to Hoover, and then they get to go on the road to Stillwater. Something about being on the road just brought them together, and they played their best baseball at the end of that season. So, that's not to say they can't win at Baum, because they certainly can. For all the times that we've mentioned here the last few years, they won like 5 in a row before that, super regionals and regionals between 18 and 21 season. But yeah, it is interesting because they've been so good at home, and you figured, in addition to pitching, the one real strength this team had going into the postseason was that they had been so good at home, and that 33-3 record that they had included a lot of comebacks against a lot of good teams. And the fact that they weren't able to take care of home field advantage or take advantage of home field advantage, I think that was a big shock.
We'll leave it there, Matt. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much, and we'll do it again. We'll do it again sometime soon. Okay.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Thank you.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.